Like thieves in the night, they lie in wait. Camouflaged, patient, deadly. They're not even insects, they're arachnids. If you knew how many spiders were within a 25-foot radius of where you are right now, you'd probably freak. But they can play a positive role in the ecosystem. This doesn't mean you have to be any less afraid when confronted by this or this. And not many of us can understand this. Prepare to be fascinated, repulsed and amazed as we examine the killer instinct of spiders.
I've been playing with dangerous animals all my life, and you might find this hard to believe. When I was a kid, I used to be terrified of spiders. If I actually saw a huntsman crawling up a wall, it'd send shivers down my back. But then I was catching deadly snakes. So I thought to myself, if I'm not frightened of the snakes, why should I be frightened of a spider? So I overcame my fear by catching redbacks. Now, I'm still a little worried about them, especially if I come across one unexpected. But once I can see them, I'm pretty right with them. Isn't that right, big fella, hey? Hey? Hey?
Spiders are among the most ancient creatures on the planet. They first appeared on land about 360 million years ago, 60 million years before the first flying insects, which ranks them up there with the cockroaches and sharks for a beautiful design that doesn't need much change. Some of today's spiders are almost identical to their fossil ancestors. They saw the dinosaurs come and go, so they probably aren't even aware of a newcomer like humans yet. We've been around less than 10 million years, but our ancestors were monkeys that evolved in forests and plains, and humans have a deep instinctive fear of spiders. Their deadly venom, the perfect geometry of their webs, the female devouring the male after sex. Spiders have been revered and feared by humans since time immemorial. Venomous spiders are everywhere, and there's nothing we can do about that but learn to live with them. Enter now the world of the venomous spider and find out what it is that makes them bite, how to avoid it, and maybe we can explode a few myths along the way.
Some people might find this pretty disturbing, but if you ever actually walk into a spider's web, the best thing is just to stand there. He's going to run away or fall to the ground. He's not going to come and bite you. Here we've got a tarantula. This is actually a brush-footed trapdoor spider. Amazingly enough, it doesn't have a trapdoor. It just lives under rubbish and hunts its prey down. If you ever have to remove a spider from your house, the best way to do it is a little plastic container. Just go plonk, slip the lid underneath it. Presto. One spider. Now, amazingly enough, this spider can make a good pet, if you like them.
Tarantulas also include any of several species of trapdoor spiders found in Central America and the southwestern United States. This is a rainforest tarantula, or Phloglius, a recently classified genus. The male is light brown in colour, and typical of tarantulas is ground-dwelling, covered in a soft fur, and big. The female is about the same size as the male and a darker brown in colour. This provides both spiders with excellent camouflage in their rainforest floor environment. Here, for the first time caught on camera, the perilous mating of the Phloglius. The male has to be careful not to be bitten. After he vibrates his intentions to the female's web lining her burrow, and she accepts his advances, she will allow him to drag her out into the open. Now with room to move, he will lock his front legs over her to hold back her deadly fangs. He literally bends her over backwards and pushes his sperm-delivering embolus into her epigynon. Most tarantulas lay up to 700 eggs, and she will guard them fiercely until they hatch. After mating, the male must escape quickly and carefully so he can live to mate another day. To us, this may seem to be peculiar behaviour, to try to kill the father of your babies, but for most spiders who engage in this behaviour, it's merely the killer instinct triggered by a survival instinct. She will protect her next batch of spiderlings from this moment on. What we commonly call tarantulas are ground dwellers that sometimes bite people, although the venom is not considered dangerous to humans. But while the bite is not fatal, it is extremely painful.
I'm here in the Queensland Museum, right in the heart of big spider country. Now, 300 million years ago, if you thought dinosaurs were big, take a look at this fossil of a spider. That's his abdomen, his thorax and his head. His legs are about as fat as my fingers, and he would have been about this round. Imagine him crawling across through the middle of the night. To find out more, why don't we ask someone who works with spiders every day?
The trapdoor and funnel-web spiders are fascinating creatures. They've lived on the earth for as long as any other spiders, hundreds of millions of years. And on top of that, they are themselves very old animals. They live for up to 20, 25 years, some of them in captivity. They take 5 to 7 years to mature, and then they mate only once a year. Once the male gets to maturity, in 7 years he dies. So it's a remarkable group, and they've attracted a lot of attention around the world because of their size, but also because they are so ancient.
The primitive spiders spend most of their lives sitting still in dark burrows, waiting to pounce on anything that passes. The venom-producing glands are here at the fang base, or chelicerae. The venom is carried up into the hypodermic fangs, which place the dose deep within the victim. Trapdoor venom is a neurotoxin that attacks the central nervous system. The venom has two functions. Firstly, to kill or immobilize the prey, and secondly, to liquefy the body contents of the prey so that it can be sucked up by the spider. Spiders have no teeth and can't eat solid food. They can't and don't want to eat us. They only bite people in self-defense. And the primitive spiders can be quite surprising. Some trapdoors in the family Theraphozidae, which includes the bird-eating spiders, are known as barking or whistling spiders. They make quite a loud noise by rubbing their fangs with their palps. It doesn't actually sound like barking or singing, it's more a high-frequency hiss. However you describe it, it's a sure warning that says, stay away.
Because primitive spiders have been around for so long, they're really good at what they do. Now here we've got the home of a trapdoor spider. How they hunt is they just wait for something to come past, then they just ambush it.
Past the well-built and ingenious trapdoor, the burrow twists and turns. It's designed to confuse intruders and possibly turn them into a meal. The trap can also be locked or held shut by the spider, increasing concealment and security. In the wild, trapdoor spiders prey on the weak and unwary. They're called bird-eating spiders because they will eat small birds and chicks which fall from nests. Or, as in the case here, an abandoned baby mouse. One quick strike, and in seconds the mouse is dead, and the spider can take its time over the meal. Rob Reddle and his friend John Robbo Robinson are up in the Cape. That's Australia's Cape York Peninsula, largely a natural wilderness. They're hunting for big spiders.
Do you reckon he's a fairly big fella?
He should be, going by the size of the hole. I'd say he'd be, you know, I reckon he'd be about that big, so he's not a bad size. Yeah. They have tripwires out here, and they run down, and they stay in their hole, and they'll sense the tripwires go. These particular spiders usually only have one entrance. A lot of other spiders will have more than one entrance. So if we follow that hole down, we'll find him. He'll be in a little web sack right at the end, somewhere moist, and hopefully not too deep. So usually they wait until it rains and they dig their hole when it's soft. But they're quite often little crabs in the creeks. They'll go and pinch their hole. Yeah, as we get a bit closer, his web will get really thick.
That's not a bird spider, mate. That's a trapdoor.
Well, I'd say he's pinched the hole. Either something's happened to the bird-eating spider, he's died, or this time of the year, if that hole belonged to a male, he's probably out searching for a female somewhere.
Alright.
So, if he returns, he'll kill that spider and eat it.
Well, let me think of that, there you go.
Oh, yeah. He's still a good size for a trapdoor.
He's a good size for a trapdoor. He's got fangs a bit like a huntsman. They come in from the side.
Side, yeah. But he's a lot more venomous than a huntsman, this fella.
Yeah.
You're not frightened of him, are you, John?
I'm not a big lover of spiders. Queensland University, you love him.
Captured spiders like this are taken to museums or private enthusiasts who do research in their homes.
Get some leaves and spray in some water later. A little bit of soil. We have to wet it up later, though. Then put him in.
Now will you carry him?
Yeah, it's okay now. I don't mind looking at him, I just don't like him touching me.
You might not believe this, but some people genuinely love spiders. I'll bet the neighbours don't know what Kurt Walker's keeping here in his room. Kurt not only keeps and breeds spiders, he also collects their venom for research.
This is what we're looking for, right?
I hope not that big.
No, not this big.
Kurt keeps many kinds of tarantulas, mostly from the United States. About 65 in all. His favourites are the theraphosids, especially those bird-eating spiders. He has many breeding pairs.
They're something that I have a fascination for. They are an old-world spider, so as you can imagine, they're perfect indicators of a healthy environment, and they are one of the most sensitive arachnids around. They're very, very sensitive to movement, vibration, and actually sense of smell. They can actually smell the pheromones or hormones excreted from one spider for up to 1 kilometre away just from the hairs on their legs. And each spider has a certain group of characteristics which it will perform, but as you can imagine, depending on the actual individual, will depend on what the spider will or won't do when you actually enter the enclosure. I can actually get them to bite, I can get them to run away, or I can get them to play dead depending on the stimuli at the time.
But this is far more than just an extreme hobby. Kurt Walker is involved in important research.
We're currently undergoing venom research. As you can imagine, each group of animals has a different toxicology, different makeup of their venom. We're trying to explore exactly what these actual makeups are.
Venom research is becoming big business in the search for new pesticides, medicines, and of course antivenins.
Well, what we'll in fact do with the theraphosids, they don't extrude venom like a funnel web does, so we'll actually anaesthetise the animal, put it into a plastic bag, and use an electronic stimuli to actually extract the venom from their actual chelicera or their fang base.
The venom is analysed in places like here in the Toxic Pharmacology Lab in the University of Queensland. New venoms are analysed for their active ingredients. Further study of a particular poison means extracting it from the venom to get a workable amount. And in the case of many spiders, that takes time, as the amount of venom they produce is quite small. Here, they're looking at the analysis of the theraphosid venom Kurt milked earlier. The active ingredient is a neurotoxin. It's deadly to humans, but not in the amounts here. However, it could be a useful pesticide, but to conduct some trials on its possible commercial value, we'll need to get about 1,000 times more venom than we've got here. But when Kurt's away doing analysis like this, who looks after his pets?
Well, Kurt and I have been married for a few months now, and at first a lot of people used to ask me, did it bother me that Kurt has all these types of animals in the house? And it doesn't really. I'm a real animal person myself, and especially the spiders. I used to work with spiders a lot, and I really dig how the females are dominant in the spider race, and the males actually, some of them have these specially designed little feet to actually hold back the females while they have sex, and then afterwards the female turns around and eats him. Go girl.
Kurt Walker reckons once you get to know them, they're not as fierce as they look. In fact, he thinks they're quite cute.
Ooh, I think I'll stick back to some crocodiles.
Venomous spiders aren't only found in the wilderness. In fact, some of the most common garden spiders can be the most dangerous, depending of course on where you live. The heart of Sydney funnel web territory just happens to be in Australia's most populated city. That is Sydney, of course. The aptly named Sydney funnel web, the world's deadliest spider and among the deadliest of creatures in existence, is responsible for the deaths of 60 people during the last century.
I'm not here for a backyard barbecue. I'm looking for a deadly spider. In fact, the deadliest spider in the world. These spiders live in burrows under the ground and they like moist places, so pot plants are a good place to start. Web. Just shift these pot plants out of the way. I'll get rid of the web. Here's the entrance to this burrow. That comes out of it. Now there she is. Let's get her to go in this little bottle so we can have a good look at her. Here you go, here you go. Yep, here she goes. The Sydney funnel web, a very primitive but famous spider. Very efficient hunter. It's an ambush predator, pouncing on anything that walks past its burrow. And isn't she a beauty?
As you can see, it's not like they're hard to find. Urban areas can be crawling with them. The female isn't much of a problem. She rarely leaves the safety of her burrow and can live more than 12 years. But it's the males that bite people. In the breeding season, they stop eating and set out across the countryside searching for a female. Often, that countryside is someone's backyard. They are aggressive and much more venomous than the female, and they have been known to attack without provocation. After wandering around all night looking for a girlfriend, you never know where he'll end up at dawn.
Hey, fellas.
In Sydney, you take a second glance before reading the newspaper in bed. Even after 48 hours at the bottom of a swimming pool, they're still dangerous.
The Atrax toxin in this spider's fangs is one of the most powerful poisons known. Now, it is particularly deadly to humans and monkeys. Yet this spider doesn't eat humans or monkeys. Now, 500 miles north of us, there's another funnel web that makes this one look quite tame. Can you jump up with me?
We're at Cape Byron, the most easterly point of the Australian continent. Those mountains you see to the west are the home to the most terrifying funnel web spider of them all, the northern tree funnel web. This spider is more than twice the size of the deadly Sydney funnel web. 20 years ago, a young forestry worker was the first recorded person to be bitten by this fearsome spider. The northern tree funnel web's Latin description includes the name formidabilis, which means terrifying. It lives in jungle trees and can be found up to 100 feet above the ground. The venom from both males and females has shown to be more toxic than the male Sydney funnel web. It preys on geckos, frogs and insects, much as the ancestors of all funnel webs lived in the ancient jungles of Gondwanaland. And now and then, a human like Jeff Hansen gets in the way.
Well, I reckon I was the first recorded bite in a tree funnel web. I bet plenty of men died in the bush back in the old days and no one knew what it was then. I was about 100 foot up a tree when it came at me out of a crevice in the bark. It was easily as big as my hand, the most frightening spider I've ever seen. I got pretty sick, nearly died. I was in a coma at Lismore Base Hospital. It was the Antivenom that saved me from that monster. Hey.
We know at least 60 people have been killed by the bite of the funnel web spider, but the figure's probably much higher because very few records remain from early settlement. Eventually there came a breakthrough, and it all started with a man called Dr. Strawn Sutherland.
Dr. Sutherland's discoveries have potentially saved the lives of thousands of people. What really triggered him to look for an antivenom was when his neighbour was bitten. His team had been doing some groundbreaking work with the world's first snake antivenom, and he thought, why not spider venom? During their 14 years of research, much was learned about the funnel web spider. The first problem to be overcome was the tiny amounts of venom you can collect from a spider. You can see 2 deadly drops on this funnel web's fangs. A big brown snake like this produces quite a quantity of venom. A single dose of spider venom would yield a much smaller amount of Atrax toxin, the dangerous component of the venom. Of course, in the late 60s and 70s, there wasn't the computer power we have today. Practically everything was done by hand. But even with all this new technology, some things haven't changed, like the way a spider is milked here at the Australian Reptile Park. Simply stimulate the donor and extract the minute droplets of venom with a pipette. Lynn Abra, the funnel web lady, finds the job of saving lives humbling.
When somebody whose life has been saved by the antivenom comes along and thanks you, you realise that, the work you do is quite valuable.
At the CSL Limited, the Commonwealth Serum Laboratories, antivenin for spider bite is prepared from the blood of horses. They're dosed with increasing amounts of spider venom until they develop a tolerance.
CSL has worked very hard to get very pure antivenom, and consequently the dangers of getting a reaction to the antivenom is not so high, so that provided the diagnosis is quick and the doctor is courageous and administers the antivenom under the correct circumstances, the problems are over and done with very quickly. But if there's any delay in administering the antivenom or any hesitation because they're not sure, then the problem can go on for days and sometimes even months.
The serum that is tolerant to Atrax toxin is separated from their blood and packaged. The final product? The antivenom. As Rob mentioned earlier, the strange thing about funnel web spiders is that they are only found in Australia, and this continent has no monkeys, yet, as we mentioned before, the Atrax toxin venom is most deadly to simians, that is, monkey-like creatures. That includes us humans. It's almost as though the spider was especially designed to kill us. And monkeys are neither food nor a predator to a funnel web spider. Australia has a reputation for being the home to many deadly creatures. An extraordinarily lethal country, writes popular Aussie author Bill Bryson. And looking at the list of creatures the CSL creates antivenoms for, you may be forgiven for thinking so. It's claimed you're more likely to be killed by a champagne cork than a poisonous spider, and more people die from lightning strikes or skiing accidents every year than envenomations from spiders. 80% of Australia's plants and animals exist nowhere else in the world, so we alone have had to learn how to live with these creatures. And as we've seen, not just in the wild, but in highly populated, urbanised communities. So what happens when someone does get seriously bitten with one of the deadliest poisons known to man? Dr. Ian White of Newcastle Mater Hospital.
Whenever we hear of a patient who's been bitten by a funnel web, it's a medical emergency.
Okay, what's your address?
We immediately mobilise our retrieval team. If they're not actually close enough to the hospital to get in within 15 or 30 minutes, then we'll send a helicopter up and get them. They get immediately admitted to the intensive care unit. It's unclear how many people actually get envenomed when they're bitten by funnel webs. Clearly you can be bitten by the spider, and the spider, for whatever reason, decides not to inject any venom at all, and you simply get a dry bite. In the ones that do get sick, they do get sick so quickly and so severely that you need to have them all in an intensive care unit where you can deal with that if the envenomation occurs. There is some evidence that if you actually put a firm compression bandage over funnel web bite, the venom is actually broken down in the skin and never gets into the body and never causes problems. So that there's actually some therapeutic benefit in putting a bandage on. So even though they might have come in and they're now quite sick, in circumstances where we wouldn't bother with a compression bandage if it wasn't already on in a snake bite, we would do it for a funnel web spider bite.
The critical factor is to administer the antivenom as soon as possible. In Australia, learning to live with these creatures means there is antivenom in every hospital where funnel webs are known to occur. This spider is the most well-known and widely travelled of the world's venomous spiders. In the United States, it's called the black widow. In Australia, it's the redback spider, and throughout Asia, it's called the hourglass spider. Despite the different names, it is generally accepted that it's the same species.
Compared to trapdoors and funnel webs, this redback spider, also known in America as a black widow, with its thin little legs and tiny fangs, might look like a weakling, but the bite sure packs a wallop. In fact, many thousands of people are bitten by this spider throughout the world, and that's possibly more people than all the other spiders combined. And they are literally everywhere.
Redback spiders are extremely common. Unlike the American equivalent, or the black widow, the red mark is actually on the back of the animal and not on the belly of the animal, as it is in the American spider, but the venom is the same. And works the same way. And usually what happens with someone with a redback spider bite, they've usually trapped the animal somewhere. It's been in a shoe or it's been in clothing and pushed against them, and it's tried to get away and it's bitten as a result. Most people notice the bite and get a bit of local irritation and then don't worry about it too much. Over the next sort of minutes to an hour or so, if there's been envenomation, then there's pain. Characteristically, the pain starts off fairly mild and becomes incredibly severe. It's described by people who've experienced it that it's worse than childbirth, it's worse than having a bulldozer run over you. It's obviously exquisitely serious pain that is very unpleasant.
Going pretty quick, eh? More than 200 people are treated with antivenom for redback spider bites in Australia every year. In this Queensland hospital, more people are treated for redback spider bites every year than anywhere else in Australia.
Because it affects the nerves, it actually is a small protein that actually sits in the sheath of the nerve, in the lining of the nerve, and stays there and irritates the nerves that are there to carry painful stimuli. And that's why it's so painful. It's acting directly on pain nerves. Also acts on the nerves that govern sweating, so you often see a lot of local sweating around the site of the bite, and that's one of the characteristic features that helps you identify a redback spider bite is that you can see sweating around the bite site.
When a venom acts on the nerves like this, it's known as a neurotoxin. Redback venom travels via the lymphatic system, not the bloodstream.
What were the symptoms you got when you first had the bite?
Symptoms may take hours, days, or even weeks to appear. The symptoms include fever, swelling, and intense pain. In extreme cases, this is followed by paralysis of the lower limbs. Combined with that localized sweating, it's relatively easy to diagnose. No other spider bite produces this reaction.
Here's a female redback with her egg. Now, I can annoy her. All she's going to do is try and walk away or even fall to the ground. Redbacks are not an aggressive spider. In fact, the only way to get bitten is to actually trap it between the folds of your clothes and your skin, or in rubbish where you might squash him against a pot plant.
Unlike the funnel webs and trapdoors, it's the female redback that is dangerous to humans. The male is harmless. The male, as you can see here, is dwarfed by his mate, and his fangs are so small they can't puncture human skin. The wimpy-looking male is now trying to woo the female. He's being very cautious. Time and again he tries to convince her he's the one to father her children. And, time and again, even while she's busy eating, she rejects him. He's so small, she does this with a single kick. The mating, when successful, is very quick. The honeymoon, however, is a disaster. If he's not quick enough in escaping her embrace, he will be her next meal. Dad becomes his offspring's first nourishment. The redback spiders can be useful house guests, provided they don't bite. Their distinctive messy webs have blue-footed strands anchored to the ground. When activated, these strands spring upwards and hold the prey suspended. Redbacks catch and eat deadly male funnel web spiders, but the staple diet includes flies, mosquitoes, cockroaches, and crickets. The redback's relatives in the United States are several species of widow spiders, including a brown widow. All of them are venomous. The black widow itself is common throughout the subcontinent, from Canada to Mexico. Its close association with people guaranteed a safe passage to all corners of the globe. Originally, it's thought they would have travelled amongst cargo and luggage aboard sailing ships as traders from the United States arrived in the colony of Sydney soon after settlement. But now it seems Australia has been unwittingly exporting the redback since then.
Redbacks are occasionally found in the wild. They've adapted to follow humans around. Most prefer to live in our comfortable suburbs, away from their natural predators. Have you checked your local neighbourhood lately?
The Australian redback is one of the most invasive animals that we've ever seen. At first I thought that it was actually not an Australian spider, that had come from somewhere else. But there's clearly good indication that it's come from Western and Southern Australia. However, as well as that, it's been found in very faraway places like in the South Atlantic at Tristan da Cunha, and very recently it's found its way into Osaka in Japan, and there into the Kansai airport, and of course from there it will go around the world. And the other place we've heard it making its way is of course New Zealand. Now we've found another avenue is that the redbacks have now exported themselves to Belgium, going in a container of tents, and despite what the locals thought, the redbacks are surviving very happily in Europe, and it's an Australian animal that's able to take on the rest of the world. It's an export that people do not want. So our problems are becoming the problems of the world.
We've seen the biggest, the deadliest, and the most famous of the world's killer spiders. Now there's another one we can add to the list. It's the white-tailed spider. A small spider, native to Australia and New Zealand, but it does have relatives all over the world. Now some experts believe it's not dangerous, while others say it is responsible for horrific ulcerating wounds. So who's right?
The white-tailed spider is a small, common hunting spider. It's a member of the tribe of sack spiders and is related to the huntsman spiders. It is a dark purple-black colour with a distinctive white tip on the end of its abdomen. In the wild, the white-tipped spider lives under flaking tree bark where it preys on insects and other spiders. In order to succeed at this hunting strategy, the whitetail is alert, fast and aggressive. With widespread forest clearing, this spider, like the redback, has moved in with humans. At least the redback stays put in its web. The whitetail is an aggressive, free-ranging predator, and they are particularly attracted to the coolness of bedrooms and bathrooms. Bites are inevitable. It's argued that the venom of the white-tailed spider contains a self-replicating enzyme that dissolves the body tissues of their prey.
Bites by the white-tailed spider is probably the most contentious area of venom research at the moment. It's not known what's happening. We don't know if it's directly linked to the venom, to a bacteria, to a fungus, or something else, aliens even, that are introduced when the spider bites. Because symptoms don't show up very quickly. They can have quite a delayed reaction. So that makes it hard to prove that it's actually from the spider itself.
In extreme cases of human bite, secondary infections can take hold and massive plastic surgery may need to be performed. Or in the case here, the bite victim's big toe was grafted where her necrotic thumb used to be. But scientists disagree, so research continues into what may be the most frightening spider bite of them all.
Now spiders have another closely related arachnid cousin. They've got 8 legs, and like spiders, some of them are deadly to humans. And we've got one just here. Just give it a run under my hand. He's a little bit uptight. And it's this little fellow, the original creature with a sting in its tail, a scorpion.
This is another arachnid that has received more than its share of bad publicity. Another dubious media star, it's often portrayed as the bad guy's murder weapon. They're mostly furtive and sedentary, living under bark, leaf litter, stones and logs, or burrowing deeply in arid areas. In North America, there's a belief that they're only found on desert sands, reveling in the scorching heat. In fact, all are largely nocturnal, and while some thrive in deserts, it's usually about 6 feet below the surface. Scorpions, like this brown Australian variety, also a close relative of the spider, differs in some significant ways. Its palps, the paired appendages carried ahead of the 8 legs, are enlarged into heavy pincer-armed claws. The abdomen is extended into a narrow, flexible tail. The telson, or end of the tail, is tipped with a sting fed by ducts from 2 venom glands. Here's a yellow sand scorpion quietly waiting for a cricket to enter its strike range. Suddenly, the scorpion's arsenal comes into play. The powerful pincers hold the prey, while the agile tail moves up, over, and from side to side, injecting venom with multiple stings and surgical precision. They feed exclusively on live insects and spiders. The sting is usually only used on strong prey. Once immobile, the juices are sucked out. As famous as tarantulas, scorpions are among the most ancient lineages of all terrestrial life. The first animal to leave the primordial seas is believed to be the scorpion. But there's no hiding from predators even 6 feet underground. A goanna likes nothing more than to snack on a juicy scorpion. The scorpion vainly tries to sting his captor, but the goanna's hide is tough, well adapted to surviving the harsh deserts. Of the 1,200 identified species of scorpions, only 20 to 35 species are potentially dangerous, and out of these, generally less than 2% of their stings are lethal on adults. Rob's taken John Robinson out on another spider hunt. And Rob's about to freak out Robbo with his walk into the spider web stunt.
Imagine walking along and you go, oh, and this thing goes, falls on your bloody face. This big spider is a golden orb spider. Now you'll notice in the corners of the web up there, the little red ones, they're the males. Now while the female comes down and wraps up and eats that grasshopper, the male can use that diversion to mate with her. Otherwise, if she gets him, she'll eat him. Sneaky little devil. Now this spider isn't, but some spiders can be extremely dangerous. To minimise the risk of being bitten, don't try and kill the animal, because that's the best way to get bitten. Now if you are bitten, don't squeeze, suck or cut the wound, because that won't help.
Rob's right. This will only increase the spread of the poison through the victim's body. For a funnel web bite, bind the affected area or entire limb if possible with a crepe bandage and use a splint. Above all, keep still and calm. Don't use a pressure bandage for redback or black widow spider bite. Just get quickly and calmly to a hospital. Applying an ice pack will give some relief from the pain. Thanks to Dr. Struan Sutherland and others, Antivenom is readily available for all life-threatening spider bites. So, above all, don't panic. Spiders aren't our natural enemies. They don't eat our crops, they don't spread disease, but they do control insect pests. They only attack for food in what may be termed a killer instinct, or if you stimulate the wrong response.
And much along the same way, the spiders keep the insect populations down. They're a vital part of the ecosystem. If you take the spiders out, you might have more mozzies, more flies, more pathogenic insects.
Before this documentary, I'd never let a spider crawl over me. But after a while, you know, some of them even look quite beautiful. Now, there is one spider I will kiss. It's got a beautiful name. It's called a Theraphosa blondii. I even kiss it on the lips for you. I'm Rob Brettle, and thanks for joining us on Killer Instinct.